I'm so glad that Brian read that exactly the way I wrote it, so thank you so much. Left out a few exaggerations I had in there. I don't know why you deleted them. It is really a special feeling for me to get an award named after the great Vladimir Jabotinsky by an organization that involves serious Christians who care deeply about the Jewish state. And the reason these Christians do, if I can be so bold as to state, is because unlike, unfortunately, most Jews, these Christians here in this room and around the country believe in the Torah, unlike most Jews. They believe in the Bible. You know, I was a close friend of Ben Zion Netanyahu, Bibi's father. I spoke to him every week. I visited him 3 times a year at his home in Katamon in Jerusalem. And he would tell me, he was a great Jewish historian, chairman of Jewish history at Cornell University, wrote important books and many, many articles, and he said that the greatest Jews of the 20th century was Theodor Herzl and Vladimir Jabotinsky. I would, of course, have added 2 additional Jews of the 20th century who I consider among the greatest Jews, Hank Greenberg and Sandy Koufax. Yes, you can applaud that. They were incredible. And neither of them worked on Yom Kippur, I want you to know. Neither of them. Unlike many, many Jews, other Jews. First of all, as I must, if you hear me make sounds or facial tics, I have Tourette syndrome. It's a neurochemical disorder. If you hear me making sounds, it doesn't mean that I have mental problems. I may have mental problems, but Tourette is not the proof that I have mental problems. You know, one of the characteristics of Jewish humor is revenge over the oppressor by the use of guile or circumstance, or God mysteriously intervening. Leo Rossin has a story about this. There was a man named Moish. Moish was sitting at a bar with his yarmulke on, staring at his drink, when a large, troublemaking biker, a Gentile biker, came off his big motorcycle, came up next to Moish, grabbed his drink, gulped it down in one swig, and with a very intimidating voice said, "Thanks, Jew boy, what are you going to do about it?" Moish burst into tears, started crying hysterically. The biker said, "Come on, man, what's wrong with you? I didn't think you'd cry. I can't stand to see a man crying. Even a Jew boy, I can't stand crying. What happened? What's your problem?" "Well, this is the worst day of my life," Moish said to the biker. "I'm a complete failure. I was late to an important meeting and my boss fired me. When I went to the parking lot, I found my car had been stolen. Then I took a cab home and I left my wallet in the cab. I came home, told my wife, and my wife told me to shut up about my problems and served me with divorce papers. She wanted to leave me. I ran out of the house crying hysterically. My dog ran after me, bit me in both legs. I was miserable. I couldn't believe what's going on in my life. So I came to this bar to work up the courage to put an end to it all. I bought a drink. I dropped a poison capsule in the drink. And I sit here watching the poison dissolve. Then you show up and drink the whole damn thing. But enough about me and my problems. How's your day going so far?" Now, what does that have to do with Israel and Christians and Jews? Because my first choice of a career was stand-up comedy. Instead, I chose fighting out Arabs and radical Muslims. This was a brilliant idea I had. Well, so now I'm going to give the audience something they really want and need, another speech. First of all, let me show you this map. This is probably more important than anything I might have to say. This is a map of the Middle East. The 23 orange countries are the Arab world, the Arab countries. The little yellow in the center is Israel. Israel's actually smaller than that yellow because they've given away parts of Judea and Samaria and Gaza. It's actually smaller. The Arab world is about 800 times the size of Israel. 1/8 of 1% of the landmass of the Middle East is where Israel's comprised of. Texas is 36 times the size of Israel. Massachusetts is larger than Israel. And yet the world is saying, you got to get to peace with these Arabs, Israel, and we're calling it land for peace. That's how we'll get peace, land for peace. Who's being asked to give up the land? Imagine for a minute if there were 22 Jewish countries in the orange and a little Arab country, the yellow. And the world said to the Arab country, take part of that land and give the Arabs a 24th Arab country. Or 24th Jewish country, excuse me, I'm getting confused. 24th Jewish country. The world would say that's outrageous. Jews, you have 23 states, it's enough. Leave this tiny Arab country alone. Yet that's what's happening here. This real nonsense. I'll touch on a few things that Dr. Roz Barron touched on. Because one of the biggest problems, I think, I text it in a different manner, of why college students, Congress people even, the media, the world leaders, one of the reasons I think that they have this hostility toward Israel is because the truth of the issues affecting Israel is not told by leaders both in America and in Israel, I'm sorry to say. And that's one of the reasons, and the Jewish media doesn't tell the truth. Jerusalem, as Roz pointed out, was never the capital of any Arab country. Jerusalem is not holy to Muslims. I'm sorry, I have to tell this truth. The majority of people living in Jerusalem since the first census in 1850 were Jews. Since 1850, the majority are Jews. I have a guide to Jerusalem of 1906. There were 60,000 people living in Jerusalem in 1906. 13,000 Christians, 7,000 Muslims, 40,000 Jews, 1906. And as Roz pointed out, Jerusalem's mentioned 700 times in our holy books. It's never mentioned in the Quran. If it's so holy to the Muslims, how do they not mention it once in their holy book? Because it's a lie. It's not holy to Muslims. If it was, we'd have to deal with that. So they say, so I've debated an Arab on this. He says, well, Muhammad went from Jerusalem to heaven. Very important, he went from Jerusalem to heaven. And I said, sir, you obviously haven't read the Quran as I have. The Quran says Muhammad went from a sacred mosque to the farthest mosque and to heaven. Not Jerusalem, the farthest mosque. So he said, well, there was the farthest mosque in Jerusalem. I said, yes, but when the Quran was written, there was not a single mosque in all of Jerusalem. Not a single mosque, so it can't be from a mosque in Jerusalem. It didn't exist. In addition, the Quran, your own Quran says this didn't really happen. It was a dream. He was dreaming this. It didn't happen. And yet, they use this falsehood to claim this is proof that it's holy to Muslims, when of course it's not. And from 48 to 67, when the Arabs controlled all of holy Jerusalem, Jordan controlled it. They allowed it to be a slum. They didn't beautify it. There was virtually no water, no electricity, no plumbing. They destroyed 58 synagogues that were in the Arab capital, holy city of Jerusalem. 58 synagogues were there. They destroyed them all. They destroyed the Mount of Olives Cemetery, the biggest and oldest cemetery, Jewish cemetery in the world. No Arab leader but the head of Jordan ever visited Jerusalem from 48 to 67. I thought it was holy to them. Stop lying to us, Mr. and Mrs. Muslim. Stop lying to us. But we don't cite this. We should be screaming this from the rooftops. We're not discussing Jerusalem because it's not holy to you. So I'm not interested. Yes, you have a holy mosque there that you built on top of the temple, of the Jewish temple. And you notice it's called the Temple Mount. It's not called the Mosque Mount, is it? It's not called the Mosque Mount. It's the Temple Mount. And settlements, they say the Jews are building settlements all over Judea and Samaria, all over the West Bank, 60%, 80%, everywhere, ruining a chance for any possible resolution. Not a single new settlement, why aren't we telling this to the world, has been built in Judea and Samaria since Oslo began in 1993. Maybe a couple of hilltop settlements, most of them destroyed. Not a single serious settlement. The only building that occurred within the boundaries of the communities that existed in 1993. And of all Judea and Samaria, the Jewish communities comprise what percentage of the West Bank, Judea and Samaria? 3%. That's it, 3%. And yet, that story is never told. The PLO covenant, their own covenant, Article 24, says the PLO does not exercise any territorial sovereignty over the West Bank or the Gaza Strip. It's right in the PLO covenant. And in 1988, we should remind people, people don't remember this or even know this. In 1988, King Hussein of Jordan relinquished all rights and control of Judea and Samaria. He did it publicly. Said, it's not mine. Well, if it's not mine, whose is it? Well, of course, it's the Jews. So even he relinquished any rights to Judea and Samaria. We should remind the world of that. We don't do it. And of course, the occupation nonsense. Is there really an occupation? Occupation means you illegally stole someone else's sovereign land. This was never Arab sovereign land. This is Palestine. It's a shape of Israel. This is Jordan. That's original Palestine, which a British mandate gave to the Jews back in 1917 when Britain legally controlled that area. In 1922, Britain gave 80% of original Palestine, that's the gray, to Jordan. It was called Transjordan. There's only 20% left of original Palestine that England legally controlled. In 1947, the partition plan, they essentially split the rest of Palestine into half to the Arabs, half to the Jews. The gray is the Arab land that they were to take control of. The yellow is for the Jews. The Arabs said, no way, Jose. No way, Jose. We're not accepting this, because it meant they had to accept Israel as a Jewish state. They wouldn't do it. And by the way, it wasn't the first time. In 1937, they were offered 95% of the rest of Palestine. For the Jews, 5%. The Arabs said, no, we're not accepting anything where there's going to be a Jewish state. They won't accept it. And from 48 to 67, when they controlled all of Judea and Samaria and Jerusalem, did they establish a Palestinian state? They had it. They controlled Gaza as well, and the Golan. No. Were the PLO hijacking Jordanian and Egyptian plane saying we want a state in Judea and Samaria and Gaza? No, because the issue is not statehood, ladies and gentlemen. The issue is Israel's existence. It has nothing to do with land. It has to do with the fact that there's a Jewish state in their midst that they refuse to accept. For 19 years, they didn't establish a state when they had all the land. And the last 20 years, in 2000, 2001, 2008, 2014, they were offered a state on 97% of Judea and Samaria, 3% of Israel proper to make up for the 3% that Israel couldn't give because there are Jews living in that area, so many Jews living there, and half of Jerusalem. And Abbas said no. Mahmoud Abbas said no. Arafat, before that, to a similar offer, said no. And I called Ehud Olmert, who was the prime minister. I said, Mr. Prime Minister, how could Abbas not accept your offer? What the heck is going on? You offered him the whole thing. You didn't even compromise. You just said, it's all yours. What happened? How did he not accept this? He said, Abbas called me. This is the prime minister speaking to me, Olmert. And Abbas said, and Olmert said to him, how do you not accept it? I gave you everything I can give. I can't give you the 3% because you got hundreds of thousands of Jews living here. I've given you 3% more of Israel proper to make up for that land. And Abbas said, you have to get rid of 3 clauses. What clauses? The clause that says, I accept Israel as a Jewish state. You have to get it out of there. I will not do that. You have to get rid of the clause that says, I can't bring any number of refugees, millions of Arab refugees, so-called refugees, into Israel. But he said, Olmert said, I said to him, but that'll end Israel as a Jewish state. I'm not signing it. If any document that says, as this does, you can't bring in more than 150,000 Palestinian Arabs into Israel. And I won't sign a document, said Abbas to Olmert, no further claims. There's a clause there, no further claims. And Mort said to him, as he told me, but that's the deal. We're giving you all of this, and you have to publicly say it's over. No further claims. And Abbas said, I won't sign that. Because he wants the war to continue. The goal is not a Palestinian state. How many times do we have to say that and make that clear? Why aren't Israeli and Jewish leaders making that clear? It's not about land. It's not about a state. They were offered virtually everything. They wouldn't take it. And we don't make this clear. When I make these statements and make these points to college students at universities, they're in shock. They never heard this. They say, well, if it's true, why don't I read about this in my Jewish papers, in the New York Times, in the LA Times? Why don't I hear my rabbis and other organizations talk about this? This is a big mistake that's being made, that people don't understand these truths. And of course, the kids on campuses and where I speak, they think Abbas is a moderate peace seeker. For God's sakes, the man wrote a PhD thesis saying there was no Holocaust, essentially no Holocaust. He said no Jew will be allowed to live in any future Palestinian state. Imagine if Israel said no Arab will be allowed to come into Israel. The world would go crazy, as they should. And yet Abbas says there's nothing, and no one even knows. I'm sure no one in this room knows that he said that, or almost no one. My wife knows it. I keep telling her. She said, I'm not the one to know. I know all this already. People don't, he makes speeches calling Jews great liars and fakers of history. He glorifies Jew-killing terrorists when they die. When they die, he has parades. They make speeches honoring terrorists, big pictures of terrorists. They're anti-gay. They kill gay people. They're anti-women. And of course, as Roz mentioned, and few people know this or appreciate this, they pay lifetime pensions to Arabs to murder Jews. They spend $450 million a year giving lifetime pensions to an Arab if he murders a Jew. And the more Arabs they murder, the higher the lifetime pension. Why aren't we screaming this from the top of our lungs? I mean, this guy's a monster. I mean, he's really Nazi-like. I hate to use that analogy. I'm a child of survivors myself. But he's almost Nazi-like, paying people to murder Jews. He names schools, streets, sports teams, athletic tournaments after terrorists. Imagine we had the Charlie Manson Celtics. Would that have been a good idea? Right? The O.J. Simpson Red Sox. Oh, no, he didn't kill anybody. My mistake, my mistake, my mistake. I mean, that's what they do. They're naming these sports teams after killers. And they talk repeatedly about the fact that the occupation started in 1948, not 67, 48. They don't want Israel to exist. Why don't we recognize that fact? He just said that Israel's committed 50 Holocausts, a total ugly lie. And many other horrible speeches, I won't go into them. In their media, they have pictures of beautiful Arab children, like this beautiful little girl, saying what could be better than going to paradise. They promote suicide bombing in their media, telling little children it's a holy act to die, killing Jews. Their textbooks are filled with hatred against Jews, filled with from grades 1 to grades 12. The head of the New York Times visited a family of a suicide bomber several years ago. He traveled to the Palestinian Arab town of Aboud to visit the home of Reed Barghouti, a suicide bomber. He said he couldn't believe it. There was a festive atmosphere. The house was filled with supportive neighbors bringing over steaming casseroles after he died killing Jews. The bomber's 11-year-old sister basked in the sudden attention of classmates, this is written in the Times, have told her how lucky she is to have a martyr for a brother. The bomber's mother spoke of the 72 virgins and the friends of the Prophet Muhammad he'll meet, awaiting her son in paradise. The local elementary school was renamed the Martyr Reed Barghouti School. And when they have these parties after a suicide bombing, they send out invitations to people like a bar mitzvah or a wedding. Come, we're celebrating my son who killed himself. He's a martyr now, murdering Jews. They celebrate this. This is not the same as American culture. You have to understand. When Shimon Peres used to say, Palestinian Arab mothers care about their children just like Jewish mothers. Really? Then why are they celebrating them murdering Jews? This is in the New York Times and the Associated Press. I have many more articles about this, rarely written, but I found them. And we don't talk about it. Mahmoud Abbas, puts out pictures of Arabs who have murdered Jews like this. This is one of the Jew killers. You notice there's two Egged buses in the middle being blown up. And it's a Jewish star breaking in half with red blood in between, flowing through it. And the Arabic says something like, our martyr, our hero, our leader. This is all over high school walls and college walls in Judea and the Palestinian areas. Honoring murderers, for God's sakes. And what's their emblem? They care about peace. This is the official Fatah emblem. Few people know this. You see the shape of all of Israel, including Judea and Samaria and Gaza, in the shape of all of Israel with a kafiyeh over it. It's all ours, they say. What more proof do you need that they're not interested in the peaceful solution? They're not interested in the Palestinian state solution. They show it right here. And they have a picture of the murderer Arafat and a Kalashnikov rifle. Rabbis, Jewish leaders, Israeli leaders, Christian leaders should be showing this emblem that exists this minute as the official emblem of the Palestinian Authority, making it crystal clear that they have no interest in having peace with Israel. You know, the Conference of Presidents, I'm telling you, in Israel met with one of the top Palestinian officials. I forget his name. All of us were there, the heads of Jewish organizations. And he was talking about how horrible Israel is, and they don't want peace, and they're abusing us and oppressing us. And I brought up this picture. I stood up and I said, look at this picture. Could you explain if you really want peace? How is this your emblem? All of Israel is with a kafiyeh, with a Kalashnikov rifle and Arafat. And as I was holding it up, asking him, how do you explain this if you really want peace? One of the leaders of the Jewish community, I will not mention his name, started doing this to me. You see? Stop it. Stop it. Started doing this to me. And the people around me, names some of you may know, said, sit down, he's our guest. Don't embarrass him. Don't embarrass him. This is the Jewish leadership, I'm sorry to say, too frequently we have. And then, of course, finally, the world is saying a Palestinian state will solve the problem. Just give them a state already. Well, we know they don't really want this. They were offered a state in 37, 47. 48 to 67, they had the land. 2000, 01, 08, 2014. They turned it down every time. And do we need another terrorist state? This will be another Syria, Iran, or North Korea. The polls right now show that Hamas will win any election between Judea and Samaria and Gaza by 53 to 38. We'll have a Hamas-Iran terrorist state if we establish a dictatorship for the Palestinian Authority. And nobody talks about this. Just give them a state. I assure you, it's not going to be Canada. Or at least what Canada used to be. I'm not too sure these days. So we should be saying these things we're not. Virtually the entire truth of the Arab-Islamic war against Israel in the West is on the side of Israel. And we don't make this clear. When I say this to college kids, tell them these things, they're transformed. They can't believe it. What they can't believe is say, this can't be true. Why don't we know this? Why aren't our leaders telling us about this? Why isn't the media telling us about this? Well, we should be pushing this. As Christians who care about truth and decency in Israel, as Jews who care about it, and yet that's not happening. It's a terrible failure. We Jews arose from the onslaught throughout the Middle Ages, from pogroms in the 1800s, and miraculously we arose again from the ashes of Auschwitz to reestablish the beautiful state of Israel in 48. That's the lesson of our history. The indomitable spirit of the Jews with our belief in ourselves and our culture, our talent and our Bible, and an almighty God, we can never be destroyed. For God promised that we would be an eternal people until the miracle of a Jewish state, due to another miraculous victory. Yes. Against great odds. A victory over 40 million Arabs in 6 states, where the Jews are vastly outnumbered and outarmed. Even the U.S. had an arms embargo against Israel in 48. An arms embargo. And yet, Israel overcame and defeated those who would destroy us. What more proof do we need that there's a living God than that victory? What more proof do we need? So we Jews, we people, we Christians have to believe in miracles. We've seen so many. And we've seen many miracles since Israel was reestablished. Who would believe that even though Israel was the David and the huge Arab world was the Goliath, that Israel would win the wars in 48, 56, 67, and 73? It was a miracle. Who would have believed that Israel, which began with 600,000 Jews 75 years ago, would now have 7 million Jews in the state of Israel? A miracle. Who would have believed that in 48, only 6% of the world's Jews lived in Israel? Today, approximately half the Jews live in Israel. It's a miracle. Who would have believed that Israel would have made the desert bloom? And listen to this. Just as the Holy Bible, the Torah, promised, the Holy Land will remain barren until the Jews return. And that's just what happened. It's a miracle. It remained barren. In fact, the story of Gaza, the Gush Katif, proves it. The land, the Arabs, when the Jews came to Gaza, they said, this is an accursed land, nothing will grow. As soon as the Jews came, it began to yield the most beautiful fruits, flowers, and plants. The tiny portion of land in Gaza yielded at one time most of the agricultural exports of Israel. Yet when the Jews left, the land became useless again. Even the insects participated. The vegetables that had been famously bug-free began to develop bugs. The thriving businesses of Gush Katif languished in the hands of the Arabs. Even the same managers who worked under the Jews and had all the expertise couldn't make it work. The land did not cooperate because God controls history and the land. And he said it'll remain barren as long as the Jews aren't there. What more proof do you need of the truth of the Holy Bible than this story? Human beings wouldn't write in the Bible, the land will remain barren until the Jews return. Because if that didn't happen, if things grew and flourished, you can take the Bible and throw it out the window. Say, well, it's just lies. Look what they wrote. But God wrote the Bible. He controls history. So when he says something, of course it happens. This is the proof of the Bible. And I recommend to all Jews to start keeping the Sabbath, lay tefillin, send your kids to Jewish education schools, and please believe that God is watching over us. Who would believe that we now have the most students studying in yeshivas in Israel, that at any time in Jewish history? And who would believe that the Orthodox Jews make up almost 40% of the officers in the Israeli army? Who would believe that we would have now peace deals with Oman, UAE, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia is getting close. And by the way, another miracle was in 2008 when the world's economy collapsed, the Israeli economy remained in good shape. One of the few countries that was in good shape. Only God could make that happen. And who would believe? After 2,000 years of dispersion, there are now over 500,000 Jews in the holy city of Jerusalem, 450,000 Jews in the Holy Land of Yehuda and Shomron in the West Bank, given to the Jewish people by the Lord our God, King of the universe. That after 2,000 years, the Jews have sovereignty, and all people have religious freedom in the historically holy Jewish city of Jerusalem, never to be divided again, and that is a miracle. We Jews who love Israel and Christians who love Israel must fulfill the very meaning of the word Israel. It literally means fighter for God. As Jews, we are divinely commanded in our holy Torah to pursue true justice, to fight evil, to defeat those who seek out our destruction. We dare not flee from this confrontation when the stakes are as high as they are today. So we all have to be strong. Be not afraid, for God Almighty is with us. The cause of Israel is moral and just. We must act and speak out with courage. Truth and justice and God are on the side of the Jewish state of Israel. Our holy Torah promises that we are an eternal people, never to be destroyed. And unlike politicians, God does not break his promises. And so it has been, so it will continue to be. With your help, the fabulous Bible-believing Christian community, with the strength and will of the Israeli people and the IDF, and with the help of Almighty God, new miracles will occur that we cannot foresee, and the people of Israel will surely dwell in their holy land for eternity. We will prevail. Thank you so much.